Warning. The evil next to you. 10 chilling signs you can't ignore. Stoic philosophy. Have you ever been around someone whose presence alone drains your energy? Someone who manipulates your emotions or leaves chaos in their wake? Unfortunately, evil doesn't just exist in myths or movies. It's real, it's around us, and even more unnerving, it often operates in subtle ways. But here's the truth. You don't have to be a victim. With awareness and the right knowledge, you can spot these toxic individuals before they cause harm in your life. Ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca shared timeless wisdom about identifying and protecting ourselves from harmful people. Their insights, combined with modern psychology, give us powerful tools to maintain our peace and safeguard our emotional well-being. In this video, I'll reveal 10 evident signs that you're dealing with an evil person. Signs you simply can't ignore. These aren't just theoretical concepts. I'll share real examples I've encountered in my years of studying human behavior and helping others navigate toxic relationships. You'll learn how to identify manipulation tactics before they work, ways to protect your emotional boundaries, practical strategies from Stoic philosophy to maintain your inner peace, clear warning signs that someone might be toxic for your life. This knowledge isn't just helpful, it's essential. Because the sooner you can identify these signs, the better you can protect yourself and those you care about. If you've ever felt that something was off about someone but couldn't quite explain why, this video is for you. If you're noticing any of these signs in your life right now, comment, "I recognize this," below. Your experience might help others realize they're not alone. Ready to gain clarity and protect your peace? Let's begin with the first sign, one that's often disguised as care and concern. Number 1. Constant manipulation. Who has many fears also has many things to manipulate, Seneca once warned. These words, spoken centuries ago, echo powerfully in our modern world, where manipulation often wears the mask of care and concern. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who seemed to know exactly what to say to make you question your own judgment? Who could twist any situation to make you feel like you were the one at fault? I remember a colleague I once trusted completely. Sarah, let's call her that, had an uncanny ability to make everyone feel seen and valued. Her praise was like honey, sweet, abundant, and incredibly sticky. "You're so talented," she'd say. "I don't know what we'd do without you." But there was always a subtle addition. "That's why I hate to mention this, but..." That "but" was her weapon of choice. One particular project stands out in my memory. I had developed a new system that was receiving positive feedback from our team. Sarah initially praised my work enthusiastically in public. Then came the private conversations. "I'm only telling you this because I care," she'd start, before pointing out how my success might make others feel inadequate, how my innovative approach might disrupt team dynamics, how I should perhaps let her present the findings instead. For the team's sake, of course. Marcus Aurelius taught us that the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. But how do we recognize these injuries when they're disguised as help? How do we protect ourselves when the manipulation is so subtle it feels like support? Here's what I've learned about identifying constant manipulation. First, notice the pattern of praise followed by undermining. Manipulators rarely start with direct attacks. Instead, they build you up to tear you down, creating an emotional roller coaster that leaves you dependent on their approval. Second, watch for the isolation tactics. A manipulator will often try to become your primary source of feedback and validation. They'll suggest that others don't understand you as they do, slowly separating you from your support system. Third, and perhaps most importantly, pay attention to how you feel after interactions. Do you leave conversations feeling confused about your own judgment? Do you find yourself constantly second-guessing decisions you once made confidently? Epictetus reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is crucial when dealing with manipulation. Your emotional sovereignty, your right to trust your own judgment, is non-negotiable. So how do we protect ourselves? Here's what Stoic philosophy, combined with modern psychology, teaches us. 1. Maintain emotional distance. When you feel praise or criticism affecting your emotional state, pause. Remember that your worth isn't determined by anyone else's assessment. 2. Document everything. Manipulators often rely on making you doubt your memory. Keep records of important conversations and decisions. 3. Build a strong support network. Share your experiences with trusted friends or mentors who can offer objective perspectives. 4. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, even if you can't immediately explain why, pay attention to that feeling. What makes manipulation particularly dangerous is its subtlety. It's like carbon monoxide, odorless, colorless, but potentially lethal to your emotional well-being. The manipulator doesn't want you to realize you're being manipulated. They want you to think you're being helped, supported, guided. But here's the truth that took me years to learn. Genuine support empowers you to trust yourself more, not less. Real mentorship builds your confidence rather than creating dependency. True guidance leads to independence, not perpetual reliance. Think about your relationships right now. Is there someone who makes you feel simultaneously special and inadequate? Someone whose help leaves you feeling more confused than clear? Someone whose advice always seems to benefit them more than you? Remember, manipulation is not about your weakness. It's about their need for control. You're not naive for trusting. They're wrong for exploiting that trust. But while constant manipulation can be subtle and sophisticated, our next sign is perhaps even more dangerous because it appears so attractive at first glance. Let's talk about the mask of charm, a tool that toxic individuals use with frightening effectiveness. Key message: your intuition is your greatest ally against manipulation. Trust it, protect it, and never let anyone convince you to ignore it. Number 2. The mask of charm. Epictetus once reminded us that appearances, no matter how dazzling, often hide the truth beneath. Have you ever encountered someone whose charm seemed almost too perfect, as if scripted from a movie? Their radiant smile, soothing words, and ability to make you feel special, everything seemed flawless, didn't it? But when you take a step back and look closer, you might realize that behind the facade lies something far more unsettling. You see, charm, when genuine, is a wonderful thing. It connects people, builds trust, and creates meaningful relationships. But in the hands of someone with darker intentions, charm becomes a deadly weapon. They know exactly how to capture your heart, disarm your defenses, and present themselves as the friend you've always sought, the perfect partner, or even a trusted mentor. Let me share a personal experience that opened my eyes to this reality. I once knew someone, let's call him David, who had an uncanny ability to make everyone feel adored. In our workplace, he showered people with compliments, remembering tiny details about their lives, and always seemed to say exactly what others needed to hear. At first, I was impressed. Who wouldn't be? He appeared to be the embodiment of emotional intelligence and genuine care. But over time, I noticed something disturbing. His praise felt calculated, serving as a tool to extract something in return. When there was nothing left to gain, he quickly distanced himself, often bad-mouthing the same people he once flattered. Marcus Aurelius wisely observed that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. David's thoughts, as revealed through his actions, were tinted with manipulation rather than genuine concern. He wasn't building connections, he was crafting weapons. But how do you identify this type of dangerous charm before it entraps you? Pay attention to these subtle signs. Watch how they behave when no one important is watching. Do they treat the waiter with the same charm they show to the CEO? Notice how they react when they don't get what they want. True charm doesn't vanish in the face of disappointment. Seneca taught us that the biggest fraud is the one who appears most genuine. Think about that for a moment. Have you ever noticed how some people's charm feels too polished, too perfect? That's because authentic goodness has rough edges. It's real, imperfect, and human. Here's a practical way to protect yourself. When you feel charmed, pause and ask yourself, what's beneath this charm? What actions back up these wonderful words? Remember, words can be beautifully decorated, but actions paint the truest picture of character. I learned this lesson the hard way with David. One day I overheard him mocking a colleague's personal struggles, the same colleague he'd comforted with seemingly heartfelt words just hours before. That moment crystallized something crucial. True kindness isn't a performance, it's a consistent pattern of behavior that exists whether others are watching or not. So how do you break free from their enchantment? Trust your instinct. If you feel charmed yet uneasy, pay attention to that feeling. These manipulative individuals rely on your willingness to overlook the red flags, to believe in the illusion they've created. Remember, authentic goodness doesn't need a mask. It shines through naturally, without rehearsal or perfect timing. The truly kind person doesn't need to convince you of their kindness. Their actions speak consistently over time. Ask yourself, have you encountered someone whose charm felt too perfect? How did your intuition respond to their presence? Understanding this could be your first step toward protecting yourself from those who wear charm as a weapon. Speaking of masks, our next sign dives even deeper into the psychology of deception. Because while charm can be a powerful tool of manipulation, what happens when it's combined with a complete disregard for truth? Let's explore how lies become a weapon in the hands of those who seek to control others. Key message: true kindness needs no dramatic performance. It's consistent, genuine, and speaks through actions rather than words. Your intuition is often your best defense against artificial charm. Number 3. Lies without conscience. Have you ever found yourself tangled in a web of lies so intricate that you started doubting your own reality? When someone's words dance between truth and fiction with such skill that you can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. Marcus Aurelius once advised that nothing should be done if it isn't right, and nothing should be said if it isn't true. Yet for truly malicious individuals, truth is merely an obstacle, a barrier to be overcome in their relentless pursuit of control and power. Let me share a story that changed my understanding of how dangerous a skilled liar can be. Sarah was a colleague I deeply trusted. Her reputation in our office was sterling. Always ready with a detailed explanation, always appearing transparent and honest. But beneath that carefully crafted facade lay a master of deception. It started with small inconsistencies in project reports, numbers that didn't quite add up, achievements that seemed slightly inflated. When questioned, her responses were masterful, not just denials, but elaborate explanations that made you question your own understanding. "Oh, you must have misunderstood the context," she'd say, with such conviction that you'd find yourself apologizing for doubting her. But here's what makes pathological liars truly dangerous. They don't just lie to deceive others, they create entire alternate realities. As Seneca wisely observed, the truth can only be stretched so far before it breaks. Sarah's lies began to compound. She claimed sole credit for team successes while attributing failures to others. She'd fabricate conversations that never happened, creating conflicts between team members to maintain her position of power. Have you noticed how skilled liars often use partial truths? They weave just enough reality into their deceptions to make them believable. This is what makes their lies so insidious. They're not outright falsehoods, but careful distortions of truth that slowly erode your grip on reality. The turning point came during a crucial project review. Sarah had constructed such an intricate web of deception that when the truth finally emerged, it was like watching a house of cards collapse. Documents proved she had been manipulating data, taking credit for others' work, and systematically undermining team members through carefully crafted lies. But here's what Epictetus teaches us about dealing with such individuals. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. The key to protecting yourself isn't about catching every lie. It's about maintaining your own integrity and trust in your perceptions. So, how do you shield yourself from a pathological liar? First, trust your instincts. That uneasy feeling when someone's story doesn't quite add up, that's your inner wisdom speaking. Second, document everything. Liars rely on your doubt and confusion. Clear records are their kryptonite. Third, remember what Marcus Aurelius taught us. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When you encounter someone who lies without conscience, remember, patience. Their lies are about control, not communication. They often mix truth with fiction to create confusion. They rely on your self-doubt to maintain their deceptions. Your intuition is often your best defense. Think about your own experiences. Have you noticed how skilled liars often make you question your own memory? How they can turn a simple conversation into a complex web of he said, she said. That's not coincidence, it's strategy. The most powerful protection against lies isn't just spotting them, it's maintaining your own commitment to truth. As Seneca reminded us, time discovers truth. Focus on strengthening your own integrity rather than catching every deception. Remember, truth stands on its own, requiring no elaborate explanations or constant maintenance. Lies, however, need constant tending, new deceptions to cover old ones, endless explanations to maintain the facade. But as dangerous as conscious lies can be, our next sign reveals something perhaps even more chilling: the complete absence of empathy. Because while liars can sometimes feel remorse, those who lack empathy entirely operate in a different realm of manipulation. The key takeaway: your reality is valid, your perceptions matter. Don't let anyone's lies make you doubt your own truth. Have you encountered someone whose lies seem to create an alternate reality? Share your experience by commenting "Truth Prevails" below. Your story might help others recognize similar patterns in their lives. Number 4. Absence of empathy. Have you ever shared your deepest struggles with someone only to watch them check their phone mid-conversation, or witness someone's eyes light up ever so slightly at the news of another's misfortune? These aren't just moments of casual indifference, they're glimpses into something far more concerning. Seneca once observed, "Humans are social creatures, born to live in harmony with others. When one cannot feel the joy or pain of their fellow beings, they betray their own humanity." This ancient wisdom cuts straight to the heart of our fourth sign: the chilling absence of empathy. Think of empathy as the invisible thread that connects human hearts. Without it, relationships become mere transactions, and human connections dissolve into cold, calculated exchanges. But how do we recognize when this vital thread is missing? Let me share a personal experience that opened my eyes to this reality. Sarah was someone I considered a close friend for years. She had an impressive title at work, always dressed impeccably, and seemed to say all the right things. But there was something beneath the surface that took me too long to recognize. One afternoon, after receiving news about my father's serious health condition, I reached out to her, my voice shaking. Instead of offering comfort, she launched into a story about her recent vacation plans. When I tried to redirect the conversation, expressing my fears, she responded with, "Well, everyone's parents get old. You should start preparing yourself now. Anyway, let me tell you about this amazing resort I found." At that moment, it hit me. This wasn't just poor timing or social awkwardness. This was a pattern I had overlooked for years. Every time someone in our circle faced a crisis, Sarah would either minimize their pain or, more disturbingly, use it as a launching pad for her own stories. Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In Sarah's case, her soul seemed incapable of absorbing the hues of others' emotions. This isn't just about being self-centered, it's about a fundamental disconnection from human experience. But here's what makes this sign particularly dangerous. Unlike obvious cruelty, the absence of empathy often wears a sophisticated mask. It might look like practical advice when you're hurting, or tough love when you're vulnerable. These individuals might even intellectually understand what they should say or do, but their responses lack the warmth of genuine human connection. Ask yourself, does this person consistently redirect emotional conversations to themselves? Do they dismiss or minimize others' feelings with phrases like, "just get over it," or "it's not that bad"? Can they celebrate others' successes without immediately relating it to themselves? Do they show appropriate emotional responses to others' pain or joy? Epictetus teaches us, first learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. This applies profoundly to emotional intelligence. True empathy isn't just about saying the right words, it's about feeling the weight and warmth of another's experience. To protect yourself from these emotional vampires, 1. Trust your emotional reactions. If you consistently feel drained or dismissed after interactions, your intuition is telling you something important. 2. Set clear emotional boundaries. You're not obligated to share your vulnerabilities with someone who can't honor them. 3. Seek balanced relationships. Surround yourself with people who can both give and receive emotional support. 4. Practice self-grounding. Don't let someone's inability to empathize make you question the legitimacy of your feelings. Remember, the goal isn't to diagnose or fix these individuals. It's to protect your emotional well-being. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Don't let their coldness freeze your capacity for compassion. Most importantly, recognize that someone's inability to empathize isn't a reflection of your worth. You deserve to be heard, understood, and supported. Your feelings matter, your experiences matter, and your pain is valid. But what happens when this lack of empathy evolves into something even more sinister? Our next sign reveals how these individuals don't just fail to connect, they actively seek to control every aspect of your life. Remember, true connection cannot exist without genuine empathy. In a world that often celebrates detachment, your ability to feel deeply is not a weakness, it's your greatest strength. If you've encountered someone who consistently shows this lack of empathy, share your experience below with, "I recognize this." Your story might help others identify similar patterns in their own lives. Number 5. The hunger for control. For an evil person, control isn't just a habit, it's their lifeline. They want to dominate everything around them, from your relationships and thoughts to even the smallest of your decisions. This insatiable need for control often comes disguised as care, concern, or even love. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you find strength." But this very strength is precisely what manipulative individuals seek to strip away from you, because they know that controlling your mind is the key to ruling your entire life. I remember someone who entered my professional circle years ago. She seemed extraordinarily competent, always ready with thoughtful advice. At first, her guidance felt invaluable. She had a way of making complex situations seem manageable. But there was a catch I didn't notice, until it was almost too late. Have you ever felt your confidence slowly eroding, replaced by a growing dependence on someone else's approval? That's exactly what happened. Over time, a troubling pattern emerged. Her helpful suggestions began morphing into subtle criticisms. "I'm just looking out for you," she'd say, while systematically undermining my decision-making abilities. One particular incident stands out. I was preparing to lead a major project, something I had done successfully before, but she started planting seeds of doubt. "Are you sure you're ready for this level of responsibility? Maybe I should take the lead and you can learn from watching me." Her words seemed caring on the surface, but they carried a hidden message. You're not capable without me. Epictetus warns us, no man is free who is not master of himself. This wisdom became crystal clear as I watched her tactics unfold. She wasn't invested in my growth. Her goal was to keep me dependent on her guidance, ensuring I would never outgrow her influence. The control these individuals seek goes beyond basic manipulation. They aim to become the lens through which you view your entire reality. They want to influence how you perceive your capabilities, who you trust and rely on, what decisions you feel confident making, even how you interpret your own experiences. But here's what they don't want you to realize. Their control is built on an illusion. It relies entirely on your willingness to surrender your autonomy. The moment you recognize this, their power begins to crumble. Seneca offers profound insight here. The greatest power we have is the power of choice. This isn't just philosophical wisdom, it's a practical tool for breaking free from controlling relationships. Every time you choose to trust your judgment, every time you make a decision without seeking their approval, you reclaim a piece of your autonomy. Ask yourself, do you often feel the need to seek someone's permission for decisions you're completely capable of making? Do you find yourself constantly explaining your choices to someone who isn't directly affected by them? These might be signs that you're caught in a controlling relationship. Breaking free requires courage, but more importantly, it requires clarity. Start small. Make minor decisions without consulting them. Notice how they react when you show independence. A person who genuinely cares about your growth will celebrate your autonomy. A controller will try to make you doubt yourself. The path to freedom begins with recognizing your own strength. Remember that you survived and thrived before this person entered your life. You are capable of making sound decisions. Your judgment is valid. Your instincts are trustworthy. Here's what I learned from my experience. Controllers often target capable, intelligent people. Why? Because having power over someone strong makes them feel even more powerful. Understanding this helped me realize that being controlled wasn't a sign of weakness. It was actually my strength that attracted the controller in the first place. But before we move on, remember this. Your mind is your sovereign territory. No one has the right to colonize your thoughts or dictate your decisions. True support empowers, it doesn't enfeeble. Real care liberates, it doesn't confine. If you've experienced this kind of controlling relationship, share your story with a simple "I choose freedom" in the comments. Your voice might help someone else recognize their own power to break free. The next sign we'll discuss reveals another subtle yet devastating tactic these individuals use, one that often goes hand in hand with control. Number 6. Blame gauger definition. Have you ever met someone who's never wrong? Someone who has a perfect explanation for every mistake, yet somehow you always end up feeling like you're the one at fault. In their world, responsibility is like a hot potato, constantly being tossed away before it can burn them. Seneca wisely observed, people often prefer trust over judgment. This profound insight reveals exactly what manipulative individuals exploit to their advantage. Instead of taking accountability, they craft elaborate stories that cast themselves as victims in every situation. Let me share a personal experience that opened my eyes to this dangerous pattern. I once worked closely with a colleague, let's call her Sarah, on a critical project for our organization. She had a remarkable talent for presenting herself as the most dedicated team member, always staying late and volunteering for additional responsibilities. When deadlines started slipping and errors began surfacing, something fascinating happened. Rather than acknowledging any oversights, Sarah would redirect attention with surgical precision. Well, if the initial briefing had been clearer, or if only the team had followed my suggestions earlier. Her technique was masterful. Each deflection came wrapped in a tone of constructive feedback, making it difficult to challenge without appearing defensive. What made it worse was her subtle way of making you question your own judgment. Maybe you misunderstood my instructions, she'd say, with just enough concern in her voice to make you doubt your own memory. Epictetus taught us, When you blame others, you give up your power to change. This wisdom cuts to the heart of why blame shifting is so destructive. It's not just about avoiding responsibility, it's about maintaining control through manufactured narratives. Think about your own experiences. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This isn't just about taking the high road. It's about maintaining your clarity and integrity when faced with someone who refuses to own their actions. So how do you protect yourself from these blame games? First, trust your instincts. If you consistently feel confused about who's responsible after interactions with someone, pay attention to that pattern. Document events and communications when possible, not to build a case, but to maintain your grip on reality. Second, establish clear boundaries. When someone attempts to deflect blame, calmly but firmly bring the focus back to the specific issue at hand. You might say, "I understand there are many factors involved, but right now we need to address specific action/decision." Third, practice what Stoics call the discipline of assent. Don't automatically accept someone else's interpretation of events. Take time to evaluate situations objectively. Separate facts from emotional manipulation. The most powerful defense against blame shifters is maintaining your own integrity. When you make a mistake, acknowledge it directly. This creates a stark contrast with their behavior and often disrupts their usual tactics. Remember, someone who constantly deflects responsibility isn't just avoiding blame, they're avoiding growth. Their behavior reveals not strength, but a fundamental weakness in character. Ask yourself, how often do you leave conversations with certain people feeling confused about your own actions or questioning your judgment? This might be a sign you're dealing with a master of deflection. The truth stands firm without elaboration, while lies require constant maintenance. When you encounter someone who always has a complex explanation for their actions, who never seems to take genuine responsibility, recognize this for what it is, a warning sign of deeper issues. Let's be clear, accountability isn't about punishment, it's about growth. Those who consistently avoid it aren't protecting themselves, they're imprisoning themselves in patterns that prevent genuine connection and personal development. Speaking of patterns that prevent genuine connection, our next sign reveals something even more troubling: the subtle yet devastating pleasure some people take in others' pain. Remember, in the face of those who deflect responsibility, your commitment to truth and accountability becomes your greatest strength. Stay anchored in reality, trust your observations, and never let someone else's denial become your confusion. If you've experienced this pattern in your life, share your story with a simple "Truth Matters" in the comments. Your voice might help others recognize similar patterns in their own relationships. The key isn't just to recognize these tactics, it's to maintain your own integrity while navigating them. Because ultimately, your peace of mind is too valuable to sacrifice in someone else's blame game. Number 7. The pleasure in pain. Have you ever noticed someone's eyes light up when they hear about another person's misfortune? That subtle smirk when a colleague fails, or that barely concealed satisfaction in their voice when sharing someone else's struggles? This behavior reveals one of the most chilling signs of a truly dangerous person: finding pleasure in others' pain. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once observed, "The smallest pain in our little finger gives us more concern than the destruction of millions of our fellow beings." This profound insight cuts to the heart of what we're discussing today: the disturbing reality of those who derive satisfaction from others' suffering. Let me share a personal experience that opened my eyes to this dark trait. Years ago, I worked with someone I'll call Sarah. At first, she seemed perfectly normal, professional, competent, even charming. But gradually I noticed a pattern that sent chills down my spine. Whenever someone in the office faced a setback, a missed promotion, a failed project, even personal struggles, Sarah would be the first to sympathize. Her voice would carry just the right note of concern, but her eyes told a different story. They would light up with an unsettling gleam, a barely contained excitement. I remember one particular incident that made everything crystal clear. A young colleague had made a significant mistake during a crucial presentation. As he struggled to recover, visibly shaken, I watched Sarah's reaction. While others looked away in second-hand embarrassment or genuine concern, she leaned forward slightly, drinking in every moment of his discomfort. Later, she spent weeks analyzing the incident, repeatedly bringing it up in conversations, each time with that same disturbing enthusiasm. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This wisdom reveals a crucial truth. Those who take pleasure in others' pain often do so because of their own deep-seated insecurities and wounds. Think about it. Have you ever encountered someone who seems to collect stories of others' failures? They might disguise it as concern or present it as a learning opportunity, but beneath that thin veneer lies a darker motivation. The psychology behind this behavior is complex. These individuals often use others' pain to feel superior, or mask their own insecurities through others' failures, build their self-worth on the foundation of others' misfortunes, create an environment of fear and vulnerability. Epictetus reminds us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This principle becomes our shield against such toxic behavior. When you encounter someone who derives pleasure from pain, remember, 1. Their behavior reflects their inner turmoil, not your worth. 2. Their satisfaction in others' pain reveals their own weakness. 3. Your response to their behavior shapes your own character. Here's how to protect yourself. Notice patterns in their reactions to others' misfortunes. Pay attention to the stories they choose to share and how they tell them. Observe their body language when discussing others' struggles. Trust your instincts when something feels off about their sympathy. But perhaps most importantly, maintain your own emotional integrity. Don't let their darkness dim your light or corrupt your capacity for genuine empathy. Remember this: true strength never needs to feed on others' weakness. Real power comes from lifting others up, not reveling in their falls. As we transition to our next sign, consider this. Have you noticed someone in your life who seems a little too interested in others' misfortunes? Who's always first to share bad news with barely concealed excitement? Pay attention to those subtle cues. They might be revealing something far more significant than mere gossip. The ability to recognize those who find pleasure in pain isn't just about protecting yourself, it's about maintaining your own humanity in the face of others' cruelty. Stay vigilant, but more importantly, stay true to your own capacity for genuine empathy and compassion. Because in the end, the greatest victory over those who enjoy others' pain is to remain steadfastly kind, genuinely empathetic, and unwaveringly human. Speaking of maintaining our humanity, our next sign reveals an even more insidious tactic. The way some people systematically isolate their targets from their support system. Number 8. Isolation as a weapon. Have you ever noticed how some people slowly pull you away from everyone who matters in your life? It starts subtly. A whispered doubt about your best friend, a raised eyebrow at your family's advice, a gentle suggestion that they don't really understand you like I do. Marcus Aurelius once shared a profound truth. Humans are born to cooperate. Like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another, then, is contrary to nature. These words carry a powerful warning about those who seek to break our natural connections. Let me share a story that might feel familiar. Sarah was a colleague I thought I could trust. At first, her concerns seemed genuine. She'd listen intently to my frustrations about work, family, relationships. But slowly, something shifted. "You know," she'd say, leaning in close, "I noticed how Jane barely defended your idea in that meeting. A real friend would have spoken up." Or, "Your sister seems to always make everything about herself when you talk about your problems." Each comment was like a tiny chisel, carefully working to crack the foundations of my relationships. Soon, I found myself second-guessing long-standing friendships, pulling back from family gatherings, sharing less with my usual support system. Sarah had become my primary confidant, exactly as she'd planned. Epictetus warns us, "The first and greatest task of the philosopher is to test and separate appearances, and to act on nothing that is untested." This wisdom perfectly captures how we must approach those who try to isolate us. Because isolation isn't just about physical distance, it's a psychological weapon designed to make you dependent on the very person who's cutting you off from others. Think about your own relationships. Has someone ever made you question the loyalty of those closest to you? Have you found yourself gradually disconnecting from friends and family while becoming increasingly dependent on one person's perspective? The tactics are subtle but devastating. They plant seeds of doubt about your support system. They position themselves as the only one who truly understands you. They create scenarios where you need to choose between them and others. They reframe your other relationships as toxic or unhelpful. Seneca reminds us, "Associate with those who will make you better." But the isolator twists this wisdom, suggesting that everyone else is making you worse. They present themselves as the sole source of growth and understanding. Here's what makes isolation particularly dangerous. It doesn't just separate you from others, it separates you from yourself. When you lose connection with multiple perspectives and sources of support, you begin to lose touch with your own judgment. But there's hope. Just as they systematically work to isolate you, you can systematically reclaim your connections. First, trust your instincts. If you feel increasingly isolated, that's not coincidence, it's consequence. Notice the patterns. Who's suggesting the distance? Who benefits from your isolation? Second, maintain direct communication with your support system. Don't let anyone become the gatekeeper of your relationships. If someone says, "Your friend mentioned," or "Your family thinks," trust but verify. Trust but verify. Third, diversify your emotional investments. Just as you wouldn't put all your money in one bank, don't put all your emotional support in one person's hands. Remember this, true friends multiply your connections. They don't divide them. Real support empowers you to strengthen all your relationships, not abandon them. You might be wondering, what makes someone want to isolate others? Often it stems from their own deep insecurity. They fear that with other perspectives in your life, you might see through their manipulation. Their power lies in being your only reference point. But isolation rarely works alone. It's often paired with our next sign, a particularly toxic trait that masquerades as care while slowly poisoning your confidence. Your connections are not just relationships, they're your protective network. Guard them as carefully as you guard your own heart. Because in the end, those who try to separate you from others are really trying to separate you from your strength. Have you experienced someone trying to isolate you from others? Comment, "I see it now," if this resonates with your experience. Your awareness might help someone else recognize this pattern in their own life. Number 9. Jealousy in disguise. Have you ever received praise that somehow left you feeling worse about yourself? Or encountered someone whose compliments seemed to carry hidden thorns? In the complex web of human relationships, jealousy often wears the mask of kindness. And it's perhaps the most dangerous disguise of all. Seneca once observed, "Envy is the ulcer of the soul." This profound insight reveals how jealousy, when masked as care or concern, can poison not just relationships, but the very essence of trust between people. I remember working closely with Sarah, a senior colleague who initially seemed deeply invested in my growth. Her responses to my achievements were always carefully crafted. "That's impressive for someone at your level," she'd say, or "You did well, though you might want to be careful about setting expectations too high." Each comment was delivered with a warm smile and seemingly genuine concern, but there was always this subtle undertone, a gentle reminder that I shouldn't get too comfortable with success. When I completed a major project that received company-wide recognition, her response was particularly telling. "That's wonderful. Though you know how these things go, sometimes early success can create unrealistic expectations. I just don't want you to feel pressured. This is how disguised jealousy operates. It doesn't show itself in obvious criticism or direct attacks. Instead, it manifests in subtle undermining, in praise that comes with conditions, in concern that breeds self-doubt rather than confidence. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This wisdom offers a powerful lens through which to view such behavior. Those who harbor jealousy often try to diminish others because they're struggling with their own sense of inadequacy. But how do you recognize this pattern? Look for these revealing signs. Compliments that always come with a but. Praise that somehow makes you question your abilities. Air concerts that leaves you feeling less confident. Support that seems to hold you back rather than lift you up. The most insidious aspect of disguised jealousy is how it can make you doubt your own perceptions. You might find yourself thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe I am getting ahead of myself. This self-doubt is exactly what they want to instill. Epictetus offers guidance here. Don't let the action of others determine your own. When faced with disguised jealousy, remember that others' reactions to your success often say more about them than about you. Here's how to protect yourself while maintaining your growth. 1. Trust your instincts. If praise feels diminishing rather than uplifting, pay attention. 2. Document your achievements objectively. Don't let others' perspectives distort your view of your accomplishments. 3. Build a network of genuine supporters who celebrate your success without qualification. 4. Remember that true mentorship empowers. It doesn't create dependency. The key is not to let disguised jealousy dim your light. As Seneca wisely noted, the sun's light is not lessened by those who share in its warmth. Your success doesn't diminish others, and you don't need to minimize yourself to make others comfortable. Think about your own experiences for a moment. Have you encountered someone whose support left you feeling smaller rather than stronger? Someone whose praise carried subtle poison? Understanding this pattern is the first step to breaking free from its influence. Remember, your growth threatens only those who are stuck. Your success intimidates only those who have stopped trying. And your light dims only if you let others convince you to turn it down. In my journey with Sarah, the turning point came when I finally recognized that her concern was really about her own insecurities. Once I understood this, her comments lost their power to affect my confidence. I learned to accept her praise at face value, while disregarding the subtle cuts that came with it. As we move forward to our final sign, remember this crucial truth. True supporters lift you up without trying to clip your wings. They celebrate your achievements without adding caveats. And most importantly, they know that your success doesn't diminish their own worth. Ask yourself, how many supportive relationships in your life might actually be holding you back? The answer might surprise you, and more importantly, it might free you. Number 10. The unrepentant heart. One of the most chilling signs of a truly malicious individual isn't in their actions alone. It's in their complete unwillingness to acknowledge the harm they cause. These individuals don't just make mistakes, they refuse to see them. They don't just hurt others, they deny any responsibility for the pain they inflict. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Yet for those with unrepentant hearts, the very concept of self-reflection is seen as weakness, and the idea of personal growth as unnecessary burden. Let me share a story that deeply affected my understanding of this trait. Years ago, I worked closely with someone I'll call Sarah. She held a senior position in our organization, and her decisions impacted dozens of lives daily. What made her particularly dangerous wasn't just her poor choices, it was her absolute refusal to acknowledge their consequences. When her hasty restructuring led to several talented team members burning out, she didn't just defend her decisions, she blamed the victims. They weren't resilient enough, she'd say, her voice carrying not a hint of remorse. In business, you either adapt or you fail. Each criticism was met with denial, each piece of feedback twisted into an attack on others' competence. Seneca's wisdom resonates deeply here. He who has injured you was either stronger or weaker than you. If weaker, spare him. If stronger, spare yourself. But Sarah's behavior revealed a darker truth about unrepentant individuals. They don't seek strength through growth, but through dominance and denial. The pattern became clear over time. First comes the harm, whether it's a thoughtless comment, a manipulative action, or a decision that hurts others. Then follows the denial, immediate, absolute, and often aggressive. Any attempt to discuss the impact of their actions is met with defensive accusations, the revision of events, claims of victimhood, complete dismissal of others' feelings. What makes this behavior particularly toxic is its ripple effect. When someone repeatedly refuses to acknowledge their impact on others, they create an environment where trust becomes impossible. Honest communication dies. Others begin to doubt their own experiences. Emotional safety vanishes. Think about this. Have you ever confronted someone about their hurtful behavior, only to end up apologizing to them instead? That's the power of the unrepentant heart. It can make you question your own reality. Epictetus offers profound guidance here. When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. But for the truly unrepentant, this kind of self-reflection is alien. They've built their identity on being right, making admission of fault feel like an existential threat. So how do you protect yourself from someone with an unrepentant heart? First, understand that their inability to acknowledge fault isn't your responsibility to fix. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like the wrongdoer. Second, maintain clear documentation of events and interactions. Unrepentant individuals often try to rewrite history. Having a clear record helps you maintain your grip on reality. Third, set firm boundaries around accountability. Make it clear that taking responsibility for actions is non-negotiable in your relationships. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, trust your memory and experiences. When someone consistently denies their impact on others, it's not your job to convince them. It's your responsibility to protect yourself. Remember, change is possible, but only when someone acknowledges the need for it. An unrepentant heart isn't just resistant to change, it's actively hostile to the very idea of personal growth. Your peace of mind isn't negotiable. Your experiences are valid, and your right to be treated with respect isn't dependent on someone else's ability to acknowledge their faults. As we conclude our exploration of these 10 signs, this final marker, the unrepentant heart, serves as perhaps the most crucial warning signal of all. Because while behavior can be modified and habits can be changed, a heart that refuses to acknowledge its impact on others remains a source of perpetual harm. If you've encountered someone who displays this trait, share your experience in the comments with "I survived." Your story might help others find the strength to protect their own peace. Remember, true strength lies not in never making mistakes, but in having the courage to acknowledge and learn from them. Guard your heart from those who refuse to examine their own. Conclusion. So we've just walked through 10 evident signs that there might be an evil person lurking close to you. Chilling, isn't it? But remember what Marcus Aurelius taught us. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Your awareness is now your greatest strength. These signs aren't just warnings, they're tools for protecting your peace and preserving your inner light. In a world where manipulation often wears a friendly face, your ability to recognize these patterns isn't just helpful, it's essential for your emotional and mental well-being. Seneca wisely said, "He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened." Through understanding these signs, you've gained not just knowledge about others, but invaluable insight into protecting your own boundaries and values. Think about it. How many times have you questioned your instincts when something felt off about someone? Now you have concrete signs to validate those feelings. Your intuition wasn't wrong, it was trying to protect you. This knowledge is your shield. But remember, the goal isn't to become paranoid or suspicious of everyone. Rather, it's to develop discernment and maintain healthy boundaries while staying true to your own values. As Epictetus reminded us, no one can hurt you without your permission. You now have the tools to recognize toxic behavior patterns early, set appropriate boundaries, and protect your emotional well-being. Use this wisdom not just to guard yourself, but to build stronger, more authentic relationships based on mutual respect and genuine connection. If this video has helped you recognize patterns in your own life, you're not alone. Share your experience by commenting, "I choose peace," below. Your story might help others find the strength to protect their own boundaries. If you found value in these insights and want to continue growing in wisdom, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration of ancient wisdom applied to modern challenges. Next week, we'll dive into powerful Stoic techniques for maintaining inner peace in a chaotic world. Trust me, you won't want to miss these transformative insights. Thank you for investing this time in your personal growth and awareness. Remember, your peace is precious, your boundaries are valid, and your right to protect them is absolute. Until next time, stay wise, stay strong, and keep shining your light, because in the end, that's what truly keeps the darkness at bay. Take care, and I'll see you in our next journey toward wisdom.